Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are. How are you feeling today? I wonder if you slept okay, if you maybe started something new, maybe decorating a room, or doing the garden, or learning something new, maybe on YouTube or something like that. So, how are you feeling? Just let me know your comments below. I've messaged and spoke to a few of you already this morning, and it would seem a few of us are feeling the effects of the new moon already, and maybe feeling quite tired with that, which is sometimes quite draining, isn't it? It's not always the nicest of things. So, do take care of yourselves at this time. Just make sure that you drink plenty, eat plenty of fresh fruit and vegetables, the usual things. I know many people are working because obviously, some of them are in the emergency services and things. But if you can, at this time, there are huge changes going on, then just rest and just take time to be kind to yourself, So, I kind of had a thought yesterday. I mean, obviously, when I started doing these FaceTime lives, originally, at the first time of lockdown, a few friends had said, we're really struggling with things. Can you help us? Can you do a daily motivation talk or something like that? And so welcome all of you. It's lovely to see you here on FaceTime this morning. And because obviously I ran the meditation group for many, many years, and I loved it when I studied hypnotherapy and psychotherapy a few years later after that. The mind is a powerful thing, and it is very much like an iceberg, You have the part that you are consciously aware of, which is probably about 30% of the brain capacity we use, and 70%, which is like the iceberg, the subconscious, superconscious, unconscious, call it many, many, many things. And there are so many different aspects to the mind. But, that can be 70% or even more. And the more we become self-aware, personal responsibility, self-growth, and the more we become aware within meditation and within our intuitive sense, then of course we start to understand the subconscious, the superconscious. Some people call it the soul, and many different labels, It's kind of one of those things that all roads lead to Rome. But meditation is key to so many things. And I know when I was in Bali with Bapa Manku, we did many, many prayers, many, many meditations. And the things that I saw and experienced were quite amazing. And it was a real honour and a real privilege. So when I first started doing these, I was also doing the meditation in the evening, which just got too much for me inevitably, because obviously I'm writing a book and I was proofreading the others and, all the other usual things, dealing with clients. So just on that note, before I forget, I am actually doing readings, healings, hypnotherapy and life coaching sessions over the phone at the moment. I think most of you know that my iPhone is not working at the moment. So you can get me through Messenger on here, or you can get me through the email marycurtiscoaching at gmail.com. But Messenger is very, very good. My WhatsApp number, I truly don't know if it kind of blips to my Indonesian number or my Swiss number, so I will hopefully get some clarity of that today, and then I'll put something on Facebook later on. But I am doing sessions, and they've actually been really good, which I've been surprised at, because I always like working with people on a one-to-one, and when you work over a screen with Skype or whatever, it's a little bit different, but hey-ho. So if any of you do feel that you need help, just let me know. So I was saying about meditation and the power of the mind, and the mind is a really, really sticky wicket. And the mind will deliberately divert us away from pain. The ego mind, not ego as in egocentric and, kind of the cocky part of us, but the mind part of us that, wants to keep us safe. The ego mind is all about keeping us safe. So any shock, stress, trauma, any abuse, the mind will do anything to keep us away from that. So it's quite fascinating. The more you know about the mind, the less you know. Very much like spirituality, the more you know, the less you know. And I'm constantly learning, and I love learning. And many people have messaged me and asked me, how am I coping with these weird times? I mean, obviously last week I didn't feel very well, and I'd lost a dear friend. But apart from that, I'm okay. I've never felt lonely in these 7 weeks. I did feel a little bit lonely when I found out that my friend had died last week, because you've no one to hug, you've no one to go and have a cup of tea with. That was really hard. And then not feeling well as well, it really, really hurt. But, excuse me, I kind of thought, well, I've got a choice here. I either do something good, or I just not necessarily wallow like a victim, or I bite into the sadness. I honoured the sadness. I cried for about 3 hours and then some more. But I chose to look back at the messages we'd shared, and I chose to go forward. And I think we're making so many choices every single day, and we choose to look backwards or forwards, or we choose to be in the present. So I just sat quietly, and I know my friend Tony was an absolute diamond, and Ted as well. And Tony just said, well, you were going to meet up for a brew when you got back to England eventually, and just make yourself a cup of tea or a hot chocolate and just sit quietly in the apartment. And just imagine you talking to him, and you just sharing what you shared, because he was a fellow spiritual writer as well, and he'd learnt so much. And there'd been a time, when he'd bought into the materialistic aspect of life, as many people do before they kind of realise that it's completely unfulfilling, Money has its place, don't get me wrong, because it gives you freedom, it gives you time, but it will only give you time if you allow it to. And many people are not happy being faced with time on their hands, And at the moment, unless you're an essential worker, then, people have got time on their hands, and they're really, really struggling with that, because most people are not aware of what to do with the time. So, it's about being aware of your time. So at the moment, I just spend my days, I've got about 6 books to read. Obviously, people are sending me some lovely funny videos, some YouTube clips, and I'm writing book 6, so I've still got some research to do for that. So I'm quite good at being self-disciplined. However, yesterday, I didn't do anything on the book. I had a lovely walk. My body's still aching a little bit, and I'm still a little bit tired, so I know I'm not 100% yet. And I just thought, well, let's celebrate what I can do rather than what I can't do. I didn't feel fit enough to walk down into town and walk back, so I just did a local walk. And I went down one of the streets and the avenues that I hadn't been down before. And I just found this lovely it looked like a tower. It was a bit like Rapunzel's tower, and it was quite wobbly. I was wondering how the structure actually stayed up, because it was a tower, and then it had a huge part of it which was off to one side. And there were steps all the way inside, and there were windows. It was sectioned off, but obviously at some point somebody had been inside it, not necessarily just to build it, but maybe somebody had lived there. And it was right in the middle of this estate. It was really quite crazy. But I may have a walk up there today, depending how I feel later, and I'll try and get some photographs, because it's quite quirky, and I love quirky. I love something that's a bit different. I'm on a little bit of a hill here, and there was quite a view beyond, which was quite beautiful. It was a bit overcast, but that's Geneva for you. The weather's quite changeable at the moment. It can be sunny and then rainy, and last night it was thundering and lightning. So it's about making the most of every day. And yesterday, like I say, I wasn't very disciplined at all. I just got watching a lot of funny videos. I was talking to a lot of you through here and catching up, because obviously I've been away for a while. And I thought, well, we can all berate ourselves. I should have done that. I could have got another 1,000, 2,000 words done on the book. And I thought, you know what? I've had a lovely day anyway. So sometimes it's where you put the focus. And yesterday I nipped into the local newsagents. And when I got to Switzerland, I obviously needed a Swiss SIM card. To me, and a few things went wrong, which always makes things, a little bit more tricky. And eventually we got the phone working, and he was so kind with me. And I went in and he said, gosh, he said, you've been here about 3 months now. And I just thought, wow, he's remembered me. And it really touched something, because isn't it just lovely when we're acknowledged? We don't want much. I don't need all singing, all dancing when I walk in a shop, but goodness me, it was so nice to be acknowledged, to be appreciated. Maybe he remembered me because, excuse me, I was asking about him and his family. I think sometimes, what's that saying? If you want to have friends, then be a friend. And, sometimes I don't always feel like smiling, but I always put a smile on my face. Equally, last week I was not able to do that, but I had to honour the emotions of crying. But at the end of the time, I kind of thought, well, let's celebrate that this guy was actually in my life, and we shared so much in a short time, I love sharing about spiritual things, people's belief systems, not in a religious sense, of course, but also people's esoteric experiences with their intuition. So, we're back to the mind again. We're back to intuition. We're back to listening to the subconscious, the superconscious, and the soul, the higher self. So if any of you haven't meditated, I'm going to do a little meditation in a short while, maybe just 5 or 10 minutes. Just, if you haven't done it before, don't worry. It's not a competition. Nobody's taking notes. Everybody has to start somewhere. I had to start somewhere, And I always remember when I started running a meditation group, goodness me, must be, I try to think, probably about 15 years ago. I was terrified. I knew I had to do it, but I was really scared. And at first, I wrote down word for word what I was going to do in meditation, Well, we're going to go walking up a mountain, and we're going to take in the scenery along the way, and then we're going to have a rest because we're tired, and then we're going to do a little bit more. And it was word for word in the meditation what I was doing. And as I say, I was really scared. And over the coming weeks, I got more used to it. So rather than ad verbatim, rather than word for word, it just became a series of notes on a postcard. And inevitably, because the universe will always challenge us, but we do need to challenge ourselves as well. Inevitably, what happened was, over a period of time, I was getting more experienced. And a few weeks later, you probably guessed already, I forgot my notes. And I thought, well, here we go. And I sat with the group and I just said, look, I've forgotten my notes. Will you just bear with me? Will you be patient with me? And everybody was cool with that. It was me that was panicking. And I just sat there, and it was one of the things I'd done, because I moved into trust. I moved into flow. And that's something that, unless we allow ourselves to touch that place, sometimes we have to be challenged, as I was, then we never learn to find what flow is. Many of you have probably done dancing, or maybe played a musical instrument. Many of you drive a car, many of you ride a bike. And it becomes unconscious. How many times do you drive somewhere and you don't remember the drive? Maybe you remember if there's roadworks or something, but it becomes natural to you. And after that, I never made any notes. I would look for clues during the day. Maybe if I saw a rainbow, or maybe if someone had said something to me, or if there was a theme. Very often when you work as a client, you get themes with your clients. you may have a few of them that have suffered from abandonment or a certain type of trauma or something like that. And, you know, obviously you would never give personal information away, but you can generalize and say, you know, if you felt isolation or you've been abused, you know, just find a way through that. And the amount of times I've suggested to clients, you know, go to a boxing club, get your anger out on the, you know, the boxing bag. Because especially the British way, we don't honour our emotions. And I know so many of you at the moment are maybe feeling angry, maybe feeling upset, maybe feeling sad, maybe feeling frightened of the unknown. And these are really big fears. But we don't have to give them complete control. And when you do meditation, what you'll find is you will be aware of when you start to lose control, when the ego mind or the monkey mind, like I say, the ego mind is the protector self. So we've all been through shock, stress, trauma in some way, shape or form. But when we do meditation, we learn that we can deal with it better. When we do meditation, we learn that we become more aware of what our emotions are and what we're being shown. And often we can move through them quicker. Now we have to honour, as I did last week, I had to sit in that space of grieving for 3 hours. And it wasn't just for 3 hours. I cried some after that as well. I cried the day after and I cried the day after that. But it's about being able and being courageous enough to honour our emotions, because they're not easy to deal with. And, you know, our education system, certainly in the UK, is all about academia. You know, it's all about the patriarchal system. And there's one way and that's it. You know, you have to learn your alphabet and the numbers, and you have to do it this way, and then we're, you know, in competition with one another for grades and things like that, which is just ridiculous, because we're all individual and we all have many, many skills that other people haven't got. There are things I can do that maybe some of you can't do, but there are many things that you guys can do that I can't do. And we're not taught to be individuals, we're taught to be herded sheep. And I'm sorry, but I don't agree that that can be right. So maybe this COVID virus has given us time to reevaluate ourselves. I know many of you have been meditating or listening to different sound baths and different, you know, spiritual things. So in whatever way, shape or form, you know, don't think when you have to meditate, you have to sit there for hours on end. You can do meditation in 5 or 10 minutes, even 3 minutes. And if you're doing anything, if you're riding a bike, you try and do it for a few minutes at first. If you're learning to drive a car, you know, you can't drive from, you know, the south of England to the north of England straight away, or from one end of Switzerland to the other, or one end of Bali to the other. You have to take time. And time is your most precious asset. When it's gone, it's gone. You can't bring it back, you can't put it on a credit card, you can't put life on hold. So it's about enjoying every day, but there are various tools that you can use on a day-to-day basis so that you can appreciate your time more readily. And of course, the more you appreciate your time, so the more other people will value your time. As I said, I could say that because I didn't get anything done on the book yesterday, that I wasted my time, but I didn't. I spoke to a very dear friend of mine, I spoke to Nicola, I spoke to a few other friends, and it was really refreshing. I checked through some photographs, I did read a book that Tina and a few other of my friends had recommended, which is amazing. So the day wasn't wasted, but you know, sometimes when we do leave a project for a while, how many of you have been maybe painting a picture and you leave it for 2 or 3 days and then you go back to it and you find that you're going to do it a different way, or you're going to use more red or more blue or more orange, because sometimes we do need time away from, you know, different situations. Sometimes we need time away from our families, from our loved ones, just because we appreciate them a lot more. You know, if you have fish and chips every night, I guarantee over a series of days or weeks, you're not going to appreciate them the same. I spoke to a friend of mine this morning, and her and her husband had emigrated and they've returned to England. She said it felt right. And, you know, for me, what do I appreciate more about England now? A cheese and onion pie. I haven't had a cheese and onion pie or a butter pie or really good proper fish and chips for a long time. These are things I'll appreciate when I go back. Obviously, besides friends and family, for goodness sake, they are very, very treasured and very dear to me. I've missed out on the little ones growing up, you know, looking at some photographs, some family photographs through Facebook yesterday. They're growing up so fast, and I've missed that. And everything is in flux, everything is changing all the time, you know. Think of the thousands or millions of skin cells that you've shed, you know. Even when you know, you brush your hair, hairs come out on the hairbrush. We lose skin cells all the time. Change is inevitable. Yesterday, the weather here was incredibly changeable. It was thundering and lightning last night. It had been raining during the day. Then it was sun shining, and then it was overcast. But I love watching the different moods of the weather changing over the mountains. I love watching the cloud formations. And even when it was thundering and lightning, I loved watching the darkness of the clouds and feeling the moodiness of the sky. So as I said, change is inevitable. And when we can allow ourselves and facilitate change, you know, how many of us have habits? Well, I've always done it that way, so I'm not changing. Or, well, it's always been done this way, and that's the way it is. You know, you have to look, does it serve you? And for every habit that you have, is it serving you? You know, do you have too many routines? Sometimes people feel that routines keep them safe. I mean, obviously with autistic children or autistic adults, they like a routine, and we need a routine to a degree, especially if you've got children. They need to sleep, they need to get up at a certain time, and that kind of thing. So, you know, just maybe take a look at the habits, the routines that are serving you. The amount of people that I've spoken to, and I've seen posts on Facebook, and people are saying, I'm going to weed out who I thought were so-called friends on my Facebook page. And I'm really going to be more aware of who it is that I want in my life, you know. And I think that's very, very important, to be aware of who you do want in your life. Family teaches so much about ourselves, you know. And they challenge us, and they know which buttons to press. But they also bring a lot of love and a lot of community. So again, we choose where we want to focus. Now, do we choose to focus on the love, or do we choose to focus on the challenge? So, did I want to focus on the rain yesterday? I don't mind walking in the rain. Come on, I'm English. You know, walking in the rain is quite normal. Walking in the rain in Bali when it rained, which was so rare, was a real joy, you know. So, where do we want to put our focus? Where do we want to kind of give control away? Because how much control do we give away during the day to routines? Well, I have to do it this way, and I've always cleaned the kitchen at 10 o'clock in the morning, and I always clean the brass on the front door every single day. And God bless her, I always remember many, many years ago when I was married to Chris and the children were quite young. It was Christmas morning, and we had one of the neighbours, who was a lovely lady, don't get me wrong, but she was evidently OCD, obsessive compulsive behaviour. And she would clean. Her house was impeccably clean, you know. Our house was full of toys and a little bit of dust, and it was a home. But we all have, you know, our own kind of status. We all have, this is acceptable, this is not acceptable. And God bless her, one Christmas morning, I think my parents were coming to see the children, and I just looked out through the front door and stood in the street, and there she was, cleaning the brass on the door. And I just felt so sad. And her husband had gone out for a walk, her children had grown up and left home. And there she was, Christmas morning, cleaning the brass on the front door. And my heart went out to her, and I smiled and wished her all the best. And she just carried on doing what she was doing. And everything is a choice. We choose to get stuck in the pain. Now, why was it that she wanted to clean the door? Was she avoiding some pain? Was she just stuck in the routine? Did she not have anything else to fulfill her day, you know? We used to have some beautiful walks where we lived in Chorley, around Rivington, or up past the canal, you know? And so the thought for the day is change. And what I'm going to do is a little meditation, just maybe 5 or 10 minutes of a meditation, just to accommodate change, because was she willing to change? It's not for me to judge. It's not for any of us to judge. It was an observation. Did I send a loving kindness? Absolutely. Do I still send a loving kindness? I don't even know if she's alive to this day, but yes, of course. Because we are all where we are. This is not a race. It's not the destination, it's the journey. You know, over the years, I used to polish and dust, and maybe did it twice a week, and then it got to once a week, and maybe then it was twice a month, you know. Does it matter in the greater scheme of things? Does it matter if I'm happier? Does it matter if I'm more in the flow of life? Does it matter if I choose to spend more time with friends and family, or I did before the coronavirus, before I left England? So just, if you've not meditated before, don't worry about anything. If the monkey mind starts distracting you, even the most experienced meditators will often drift off somewhere far away. So there's no rights and wrongs here, and don't worry, nobody has ever died in meditation. You will wake up, I will bring you out of it, and eventually you'll come back round anyway. So when you're ready, just make yourself comfortable. One of the easiest ways in meditation is to put your hand on your heart, or both hands. And just put your hand on your heart and just go within. And just imagine you can go within the heart center. And as you become aware of your heartbeat, just think about the heart. The average heartbeat is 72 beats per minute. For those of you that are good at maths, that's 72 by 60 by 60, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and the leap years. For however old you are, your heart has been beating. And every beat that your heartbeat does brings a change. Because the old blood is pumped back to the heart so that the new blood can replace the old and be reoxygenated, re-energized, rejuvenated. So you see, change is actually taking part in every moment. And the blood gets pumped around to all the different parts of the body. To the end of your nose, the tips of your ears, down to the toes and down to the fingers. And just take a moment as you center into the heart to think about all the changes that you have gone through life. The change from being a baby to a toddler, from being a child to a teenager, from being a teenager into the 20s, 30s, 40s and beyond. The changes may be the rites of passage. The changes in age, maybe getting married, maybe getting divorced, maybe new relationships, maybe having a relationship with yourself. And just take a moment to think of all the people in your life who have brought friendship, who have brought connection, who have put a smile on your face. Maybe you find that you're smiling right now. Maybe you find that you've got tears rolling down your face, all the faces that you'd once forgotten, or maybe you thought you'd forgotten. And as you smile at those friendships and all the things you've shared, just be aware if there's a common denominator. Was it in a special place? Maybe somewhere special, a holiday resort or the Lake District, or maybe the local pub or the local restaurant. I don't know, but you certainly do. Maybe you did a course at college, or a creative course, maybe flower arranging, or a gardening course, or something else. Maybe you've lost touch with a friend that you really would like to get in touch with. And maybe, just maybe, it's time to get in touch with that person right now. And if they've passed over the Rainbow Bridge, maybe you can celebrate that life. Maybe plant a rose bush, or maybe put some flowers or a wreath on the local canal water, or the local lake, or the local river, or in the ocean. Or whatever way, shape or form you choose to do that. Maybe you can celebrate with tea and cake. Maybe you could paint them a picture, or visualize them as a butterfly flying up to heaven. Maybe you can draw them a garden. But we are all in a change. Every day is a change. You spend an hour lying on your back on the grass and watch the clouds, if it's a cloudy day, and you can see change all the time. Watching the birds. And just think of those times when you yourself have gone from being the caterpillar to a most graceful, beautiful butterfly. And just imagine a world where we all allowed ourselves the time and the love to be the beautiful butterfly, but to allow ourselves the time between the change of being the butterfly, moving into the chrysalis from having been the caterpillar. Imagine what those wings would look like, all those many, many, many different colours. Imagine being light and able to fly wherever you wanted to fly to. And imagine tasting the sweet nectar in the flowers, in the roses, the lilies, the peony, and many, many of the other flowers, on the blossom, on the trees. Being able to fly and look down and take in the beauty of a stunning valley, perhaps, or a beautiful meadow. So I'm going to leave you with those thoughts, because you are all the butterfly. We are all joined by a golden thread. We are all one, irrespective of time, place, age, sex, colour, creed, culture. We're all one. We all share the same planet. But imagine if we all allowed change more easily, and a beneficial change for all the world, which is very crucial at this time. Imagine welcoming yourself and showing your colours, your divine colours, to the rest of the world. We all love butterflies. None of us would say, oh, that butterfly's too beautiful, get lost. And yet often we don't allow ourselves to succeed because we self-sabotage. So you can choose to stay in meditation, or if you choose to, you can choose to open your eyes, going back in the room, feeling grounded, centered and focused. But I'm going to read a quote to you from Marianne Williamson, which many of you may or may not have heard or read. And if you are in meditation, just enjoy the quote. And if you're not, maybe just close your eyes or just put your hands on your heart as you feel these words touch your very essence, your very being. So, I will post these on Facebook later if you want me to, but I know many of you will know this quote. It's really profound. So, just bear with me just 1 second while I just open the book, and then I'll read it to you. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates them. And that's food for thought this morning. And I hope that's inspired you. And I wish you all very, very well today. I hope you make the most of the day, whatever it brings. And always remember to be your own best friend, because at the end of the day, imagine a world where all of us were our own best friend, where all of us were self-aware, where all of us were rich in compassion, forgiveness and peace, grace, loving kindness, trust in our intuition and our wisdom. Namaste.